And welcome back to WGN TV Political Report.
We're still joined by Congressman Roger Kristimorzy from Illinois' 8th District. We have seen a rise in coronavirus infections and hospitalizations since Memorial Day. How worried are you that we're going to see a lot of death this summer, even more death?
I'm concerned. As we all know, we don't have a vaccine yet, and we may not have one for at least a year. And because of that, we have to practice social distancing. We have to wear masks. We have to practice good hygiene. And we also have to make sure that we don't congregate in large gatherings. And so we have to observe all these things, but at the same time, we have to open up our economy, because at the same time we're saving lives, we have to save livelihoods too. So it's a balancing act. I'm concerned that some states are not doing it properly. They're getting out ahead of what the public health experts and doctors would recommend. And we also have a potential second surge of infections coming in the fall, which is what Dr. Fauci and other public health experts are predicting as well.
So, Congressman, look, there's been a lot of antibody tests flooding the market. You, in your role, subcommittee chair, went after the FDA on that. People keep talking about testing. We need testing. But the truth is, unless you've got symptoms or were near somebody with COVID, you can't get tested. I think that includes nurses and physicians who work with COVID patients. How do you create some kind of semblance of normalcy if you just can't allow everybody who wants to be tested to get tested, and these tests aren't haphazardly created like the FDA was doing?
Well, I think you bring up a good point about our testing situation. As you know, my wife is an anesthesiologist, and she has been kind of intubating COVID patients and doing procedures for them in the ICU. And basically she's saying is that there's not enough testing to do surveillance testing in the community. We're doing about 20,000 tests per day in Illinois, which is a lot better than where we started out. I know the governor wants to do even more so that we can be testing people who are in the general community who may not be showing symptoms, but who might be asymptomatic carriers. So that's where the federal government comes in, because the federal government can help through what's called the Defense Production Act and other authorities to make sure that industry can create enough swabs and reagents and machines like PCR machines and other things to be able to do enough testing. And they're not doing it. That's where the federal support role is supposed to happen, and it's not happening now. So that's a big, big problem. On the other hand, with regard to serological testing, which is the antibody testing we've all heard about, the federal government, again, is asleep at the switch. They have failed to regulate this market properly, and hundreds of junk tests have flooded the market. Only recently did the FDA finally enact some kind of oversight to prevent further damage, but a lot of damage has been done because millions of people have taken these junk tests already. That's a big concern of mine as the chairman of the subcommittee with jurisdiction over this. And we're the subcommittee that got the FDA to enact any oversight whatsoever on the antibody testing recently.
Congressman, we have about a minute left. This week, the Fed chairman said it could take the economy a long time to heal from the damage done by the pandemic, and substantial federal government help is needed. With a divided Congress, do you see any hope for another stimulus?
I think there's a possibility that the president is going to want to do another stimulus before the election. And if he does if he is willing to back another piece of stimulus legislation, which I think is the right thing to do because a lot of people are still hurting, I think one of the things that we'll have to prioritize is aid to state and local governments. This is something very important because, quite frankly, they are on the front lines as well, battling the pandemic. And I'm getting, emails and texts and phone calls from mayors, Republicans and Democrats, basically saying, our revenue is drying up. If you don't provide us with aid, we're going to have to lay people off. That includes first responders, public health related officials who are battling the pandemic. That makes no sense at a time when we're also trying to avoid deepening the recession, which is what their layoffs would do.
All right, Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, thanks so much for your time this morning. Enjoy your time in Schaumburg. We appreciate it. And we're going to take another. You got it. We're going to